welcome to the podcast. And I'm really fortunate today. We're all really fortunate today to have today's guest on this call because, as you all know, he and I share a very big pet peeve, and that is that school. The one thing I did learn out of school, and I went to school in Ohio, by the way, grew up in Ohio. I actually learned two things out of school. First thing I learned that the weather in Ohio sucks, and I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. But the second thing is, the other thing I learned is school taught us nothing about financial education, financial well-being, anything about money, business, and a whole bunch of other things. And I know Elijah shares that as well. And he's an up-and-coming star right now, proponent of how to get your financial house in order. As a matter of fact, his book is The Anatomy of Financial Success, the Anatomy of Financial Success, and how to gain confidence. And what I like what you said is how to destroy, not get rid of, not how to eliminate, but how to destroy the insecurities that come along with all that, which I'm excited to hear about all this. So Elijah, thank you so much for being on the call today. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you having me on the podcast, Blair.
Yeah, give everybody a little bit about your background. I would say, before you do, I would say easily what's intriguing about this call too is the span in age between you and I is probably pretty significant. And as I read and listened to your videos, it was really important for me to hear what you had to say, because I think one of the things that goes on is the mismatch between what people are teaching and what people can actually hear and learn and do something with is a big gap. So how did you get involved in doing all this? How'd you get from where you were to teaching?
Well, I'm very happy to go into those details. So ever since I was a little kid, I really dreamed about making more money and also making it in a particular way. And then lo and behold, the real world hit. And I started to see that I was facing two dilemmas. The first dilemma was I was making money in ways that I really enjoyed, but they weren't bringing in that much money. Then I've experienced the other side of the extreme where I've actually made a decent amount of money, but I wasn't doing what I was truly passionate about. I mean, I've been self-employed for about 5 years. And prior to that, I used to work for Amazon. I was a PA. And I started to wonder exactly this void I feel inside of me. Like, I felt a lot better when I was making money in certain ways, but they weren't paying the bills. And here I am actually making decent money. And I feel a void inside. Like, is there no way to be truly happy? And then I realized that, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You should be able to make decent money and also be able to use your personality to really achieve success so you don't get that void. And that's what sparked my financial journey. And funny thing is, I actually started making money with my personality pretty well. But lo and behold, when it came to budgeting the money, I was hearing like 5 to 10 different ways from everyone under the sun. It's almost like they're conspiring against me to tell me how to budget my money. So I eventually did find the perfect way for me. But what I realized was that was very linked to my personality. So I developed a system where you learn how to make money, how to budget money, and also how to spend money that's in line with your personality to achieve financial success. Yeah. And I started to become kind of bummed out when I would see other people at networking events, particularly a lot of young adults, struggle financially because it was nothing wrong with the information they were given or they were studying. It just may not have aligned with their personality. So that's what inspired me to write The Anatomy of Financial Success, so you can find out what is your personality, what's your strengths and what your weaknesses, and then develop tactics when it comes to making money, budgeting money, and spending money around your biggest asset, which is your personality.
Well, yeah, and your personality can be an asset if you're in the right environment. It also can be a big liability, like you said, if you're trying to force yourself like a round peg into a square hole. I mean, that's not going to work. I mean, you and I talked about before this, way back when, first book I wrote was Sales Dogs, was the same thing. You know, for entrepreneurs, we always say that sales is your number one skill in business, but you know, you don't have to be an attack dog to be successful in sales. You know, there's like you say, there's different personalities, and when you can find the best, what's conducive to you, what you're comfortable with, you're going to actually have more energy, more enthusiasm. You're going to want to study more, and you'll just obviously do better. And I'm a big proponent of, it's not just the technical side, but it's also the personal development side, which you focus on both, right? Explain that a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit about your personality, but you also have to have the techniques, right?
Yes, definitely. So you have your personality that you work with, but you need to lay a path towards self-development too. So every person has, based on their personality, a certain type of income that's best for them to pursue, a certain way of budgeting their money that's very good for them. And also, we want to make sure we're covering our basics as far as making sure you have investments selected, making sure you're covering all your bases. So the way you marry that talent to self-development is really ironing out exactly what are your strengths and weaknesses. So I'll give an example. I'll use me as an example. Based on my personality, I'm very good with technology. And when I was in the job field, I was in, at first it was like manual labor, and then it was management, but I wasn't really using my skill of technology. And fast forward to today, I run 2 YouTube accounts. One is how to show others how to make money from their phone, called the App Lifestyle. And the second one is on personal finance, called Financial Anatomy, where I teach people the basics of personal finance and also how to budget and make money. And this is all streaming back to that talent in my particular case, which is technology. And that's the key to self-development. You got to really iron out what is the talent you bring to the table, what can you bring to the marketplace. Then from there, you can develop streams of income to achieve success.
Well, that's brilliant. So what do you think? I mean, you say very often in some of your videos, and I'm sure it's in your book as well, which I have ordered, is that, you know, my generation or other generations say, look, this is how it's done. This is what you got to do. You got to be disciplined. You got to go, you know, follow step 1, 2, 3, and 4. But clearly like I said, there's a gap. And there's a gap in the way that we learn. There's a gap. First of all, the one thing we have in common is none of us learned anything about finance. So each generation's had to figure it out on their own in whatever way. But what do you see for young adults today? Because you work with Amazon, I think Whole Foods, you work with direct sellers and network marketers, and now you've got your very popular YouTube channel with lots of subscribers. What do you see as the big gap in the way we learn, or in the way we learn financial literacy, for example?
Of course. So the big gap, and it really starts in high school, and it goes into college, but we're taught a lot of subjects in high school, but the problem is finances is mysteriously kind of omitted, which is interesting because those are the skills we'll need in the real world. Like if, let's say, even if you go to college, unless your major is business or accounting or something in the finance sector, you're not really required to learn any financial education, which is interesting. I always say that financial education should be like one of the basics, but it's not. And with that being said, we have to take it upon ourselves to seek that financial education. And nowadays, the internet is a great means of seeking it, but we also have to develop a filter, because if we don't develop a filter, in this case, that's going to swing back to our personality, then we could try a bunch of ways on how to make this financial thing work for us. And we can end up in a quagmire for quite some time. So the biggest gap that in my particular case is I saw information online through books. And with that being the case, I was able to look at that information, but I had the gap of knowing, okay, these are my strengths and my weaknesses. Because at the end of the day, the information you get, you're going to apply it in whatever means applies best to you anyway. You can just amplify that process if you know some weaknesses. Then you can develop things around that, and that's how you'll achieve financial success. whether it comes to budgeting, making more money, or spending money.
Yeah, you see, and I like what you did. You boil it down to three basic areas: is making money, budgeting the money, spending the money. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times get lost in financial freedom because we talk about that a lot. Financial freedom. It's like whoa. Before we get to financial freedom, let's get to some basics. It's like if you don't have any money to invest, you're not going to be able to make it to over there. And just the frustration of not having enough money at the end of the month and not being able to have the lifestyle you want. I mean, those are basics. And now that the economy's questionable, I mean, that's even getting dicier out there, right? What do you foresee as the future for young people, for young adults today, based on the way the economy's going?
The future that I see, the prosperous future, if we make it be, I think that this problem with the school system not teaching finances is becoming more on full display. And with that being the case, I see many young adults starting to realize, okay, I can't just ignore this because they didn't teach it to me. I do need to seek other means of learning it. And that's fortunate that we live in a time where we have information that's very accessible. What's interesting thing about YouTube is the personal finance niche, like 5 years ago, it'd be pretty hard to find like a personal finance video that had more than 100,000 views. And you type anything on finance today, whether it be how to budget money or investing or growth stocks, how to make money, and you come across so many videos with all these views because people are realizing that, hey, this financial thing is very serious, and whatever I want to do in life, it does circle back to this to some extent. Your life doesn't have to be revolved around making money or anything, but you do need to respect the fact that it plays a role in life and it affects things that are important. And just that statement alone isn't even really taught in school. That statement alone being said would actually put a lot of people on a good path, but it's not said, and
So
people
yeah,
wander around.
you have to wonder why it's not said. It's almost kind of like sometimes I think it's purposely withdrawn because if you really had the ability to do that, then you could be creative, you could play to your strength, you could do the things that you're talking about, right? But somehow or other, maybe it's like, no, you got to be good, do as you're told, go do this because you're qualified for that and you're qualified for that, and just follow somebody else's orders rather than following excuse me, following your own destiny. Let me ask you something. You said the title of your book is like to destroy have the confidence and destroy the insecurities. Talk to me a little bit. What are the common insecurities that you see that people have that undermine their finances?
Okay. So the first one, it has to do with making money or income. A lot of people are insecure about how to make money, but that doesn't strictly mean like I'm broke and that's my insecurity. It really comes down to an insecurity about what's the type of money you want to make. And that circles back to what do you want from life? Like there's different types of income. There's an active income, there's passive income, and let's just briefly explain what those two things are. Some people may seek passive income, and that's the best thing that they should work on for now, but they don't actually have a methodology on how to make it passive. And you have some people, they really enjoy the thrill of getting out there and making more money. They need more money for whatever reason. And passive income isn't the best income for them because that's something that might take a while to build slowly over time. They may want something faster, which goes into active income. And people don't have a means of distinguishing exactly what's the difference between the two. So and this happens in network marketing all the time, I hate to say, but a lot of people, they seek the income that maybe they don't need in that moment. Like they're really focused on making passive income, but rents do, and they really should be focusing on active income and vice versa. And that's just an example of that insecurity comes out in various ways. And then we go to budgeting money, and many people, a budget is simply a plan for resources or for money. And if you don't have a means to lay that out, by default, you're going to be insecure. So everyone needs to cover the basis, which is expenses, savings, spending money on yourself. You don't want to go crazy. and investment.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you talk about the fact, and this comes back to your basic anatomy thing, is that there are different personality types, right? So I think, what'd you say? There's like six personality types, if I recall that. You there? Oop, you just froze on me. Uh-oh. Hello, come back. Uh-oh. Pause the record. So Elijah, you talk about there's like six personalities, and you saying that one of the ways to eliminate some of those insecurities is to play to know your strengths and weaknesses and play to your strengths. So can you give us an example of a couple of those personalities, and then how it would apply, let's say, to making money?
Okay, so I'll give you an example of the personality which is known as the builder in my book. So the builder is very good at using technology to achieve results. And in terms of income that's good for the builder to pursue, it's based on an emotional strength that he has, which is he has the ability to delay gratification. So he can work on various projects making money. And when results don't happen immediately, he has the ability to delay gratification, which is great for building steady passive income. So with knowing that that person has that emotional strain, they can use that to their advantage by finding streams of income to build in that manner. Now, let's take that to a different type of personality, which is the sniper. The sniper is a very active personality, and the best income type for them is making money, active income, and it's not so much steady, it's unsteady. They want the sky to kind of be the limit. And with that being the case, a great income for them to pursue is actually the unsteady active income, because they can make as much money as they want as long as they're willing to put in as much work as they want. So that's a good example of, in terms of nailing them to those personality types, everyone has the particular income they can work with. And same goes for budgeting techniques and also spending money.
Yeah. So so at the other end, so we got the builder, we got the sniper. I like that term, by the way. Is that so, like on the budgeting side, because I know for a lot of people, personal finance, it's like budgeting is I got it. I'm a good budgeter at the beginning of the month. Second week, I'm not so good. Third week, I'm really bad. Fourth week, I'm a disaster. Why is that?
So a big reason is they haven't outlined the budget for the month. And when I say outline it for the month, I mean outline, make it as automatic as possible, and also get software that you can use to budget. Like a good example is Simple. Simple is a bank, and it allows you to do strategic management and put goals in place. So you can name goals. Let's just use the four standard things: investments, expenses, savings, and investments, savings, spending, and expenses. Sorry about that. And you categorize your spending based on those, and you can have it so that money is set aside in those each areas and is spent accordingly. A lot of times we're not using the advantage of modern technology so that we can use it to automate the process and keep track of things.
Right.
So,
But how does personality play into that? You say different personalities budget differently, yeah?
yes. So, based on your personality, two of those four that we just mentioned is going to be your emotional strengths.
Uh,
So, you spend money on that automatically. It's not a challenge for you. And two of them are going to be, for whatever reason, you have trouble spending money there. You may be kind of hesitant. And whatever reason, it's just not your cup of tea. So with that being, I'll use myself for an example. So for the builder's strengths when it comes to budgeting is investments and savings. So set those on autopilot and have things outlined as far as what you want to invest in. But the builder's weaknesses are expenses and self-spending. So with you knowing that, you need to make sure that you spend those money on that first so you can start building that area up. Because the other two you tend to automatically spend money on. But the last two are the ones where you struggle. And this is where it comes to, I knew I was supposed to spend money in this area, but the months ended and now I'm having problems. But if you know you have problems with that area, you can make sure you take care of those first. And your two strength areas, well, you're not going to have a problem spending money there because you already do it by default. You feel
Right.
strange if you don't spend money there.
That's right. Well, that makes sense. You're just going to put off the ones that are uncomfortable for you until it's too late, and then your budget is empty. So I understand what you're saying. So, like I said, I'm as you know, I wrote a book called Little Voice Mastery. How to, little voice between your ears, how to win the war between your ears. And I think that what you're talking about is really unique, and I think it's powerful because it's a combination of mastering your strengths and weaknesses, which is part of that little voice stuff. But it also sounds like, and unfortunately I haven't read the book yet, but some real practical things of here's what you should do. So if you're this, do this. If you're that, do that. Rather than leaving it up to the reader to kind of guess. Very practical ways to spend, to invest, to make money, and those kinds of things. Is that what the book's about?
Definitely. It's a blueprint for financial success based on your personality. And there's not a guessing game. It lays out a method on how to identify that. Then from there, you can use this blueprint to achieve success in the financial areas.
So let me ask you something. This is kind of off the cuff. We both agree that our education system just doesn't prepare us for this kind of stuff. So if you let's say you've got kids, or you've got we have some young adults that have young family, or raising young families. What's your suggestion to them for their kids so that they don't have to go through the misery that some of us have had to go through?
That's a good question. And as parents, there's definitely a responsibility to pass the buck on. With that being the case, one thing we can focus on, obviously, to have their schoolwork, but there's nothing wrong with having I'll say just a secondary curriculum, and it doesn't have to be so formal, but something really focusing on, based on my child's personality, I'm seeing this is the troubles they're having. So having an active dialogue about what they're feeling when it comes to money. Like a lot of times when we're in our teenage years, sometimes we actually end up having some experience with money. We end up getting a job. And just sitting down and actually talking to your child about, hey, what are you spending your money on? Just to get them in the habit of dialoguing about this.
Yeah.
And they're going to start to see that, oh, I spend money on this, I spend money on this. And then it kind of circles back to, okay, so you're exhibiting attributes of this personality, and these things here you're not really interested in spending money on. Not so much. Then you communicate the value of, hey, these areas you got to spend money on too. Otherwise, you're gonna fall behind in some way.
Yeah.
And once they can start really learning, and they can marry that to real life experience.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. One of my friends is started a company called Colby Company, Kolbe, and she does an analysis of your strengths. And I want to ask you about this because her philosophy is that you don't have weaknesses. You just have relative strengths. So if you're weak in one area, like let's say you're not real detail oriented, chances are you can see the big picture pretty well. Okay. If you see the big picture well, maybe you're not detail oriented. So for everything that's perceived as a weakness, there's an opposing strength. And so I like what you said about as a parent talking to your kid about their strengths and their personalities, because then they don't feel bad. Like, well, I'm just not good at that, but here's what I'm good at. What do you think about that?
It's just spot on. That's very true. Because we use the term weaknesses kind of as a form for communication. But a lot of times I like to think of them as hidden strengths. Because if you have a quote unquote weakness, you're kind of forced to focus on it. Then before you know it, is actually one of your assets as opposed to your strengths oftentimes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I kind of already have that down. With that being the case, do I really need to focus on it so heavily? That's kind of going against the point.
That's right. That's right. See, and you keep talking about it being a weakness, even though you turn it into a strength, you still think it's a weakness. And now you got little voice issues going on. So let me ask you this thing. Young America right now, like we talked about this a little earlier in the call, is the podcast, is that, there's a lot of financial uncertainty going on. What is if young adults in America today are asking for something financially, that maybe my generation or educators or even I know you're addressing it, but what is it that they want? Well, how can as a community can we support each other? Let me just say back, I'm an educator, right? I work with people, the entrepreneurship. You said something in a book review, and I won't mention which book you're reviewing, but in the review, you said that it was big on concept, but not as strong in detail. Is that what people need today? Is that why your book is so popular? Because it gives people the specific how-tos and what to do? Is that what they want? Is that what people are looking for?
I would definitely say yes, especially in this day and age, because it's getting to a point where we all know what the problem is, and that's good. For so long, there wasn't an awareness about it, but now it comes down to, okay, I know what the problem is, and I need to map out a methodology on how to address this problem. And that's when there needs to be a gradual shift from conceptual to the details needed to lay out a methodical way to address the problem.
Well,
So this time around, we have the concept. We need a little more detail-oriented, more specific actions when it comes to solving the problem. And I would like to say that I've seen a lot of things on many fronts. It might be biased, but I would say that I'm addressing it too. But in general, I'm seeing a shift towards more detail. And it's a beautiful thing because I can tell people really see the problem and they're sincere about fixing the problem. And that makes me very optimistic about the next generation and even the later part of my generation.
that's awesome. That's good. So tell everybody a little bit about your book and what they could hope to get from it if they were able to pick it up real quick. And by the way, you can find it's on Amazon.com in Kindle form and paperback. So you guys go check it out. But give us a brief overview of what that book can give you.
Sure. So we know that the school system has failed to equip us with the tools that we need. That's pretty abundantly clear. And that's one huge problem, but there's always been a secondary, more subtle problem that I've seen people had, and I've had it too. But it's the fact that we don't use the biggest asset we have, which is our personality. Then from there, we can really map a system that works best for us. And that swings back to those three areas: making more money, budgeting money, and spending money. And oftentimes we may try and mimic someone's techniques on doing something, but it may not work best for our personality. What the anatomy of financial success gives you is it gives you the ability to identify which personality you are so that you can use the techniques in the book to map out success when it comes to those three areas. And in doing so, this builds your confidence up and it destroys those little subtle insecurities that, whether you realize they're there or not, they're subtly sabotaging your success.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's really a how-to based upon your personality, because it's real easy to compare yourself to other people. I know nobody ever does that, but we're always comparing what this person's doing, what that person's doing, what this guru's doing, what that guru's doing, and all that stuff. And so sometimes you get to feeling like your little voice is saying, well, I'm just not cut out for this. I just not good at making money, or I get all confused with spending or budgeting or whatever it is. And the truth of it is that that's just not true. That's what you're saying. It's just not true. It's not that your default. It's just that you haven't addressed your unique strengths and applied it in the area of money. Say it again. Taking your unique God-given strengths that you're born with, that you've developed all these years, and applying it to the area called money and finance. think about it. I'm just going to say this is that if you're doing something that's natural to you, that you feel comfortable doing, you're going to do more of it. You're going to study it more. You're going to enjoy it more. You'll be willing to make mistakes and correct them easier. So it's about playing to your strength, which I'm obviously a big believer. That's why we wrote the book Sales Dogs. Talk to me just for a minute or two as we start wrapping this up. Talk to me for a little bit about the importance of playing to your strengths one more time when it comes to money.
I'm glad to. I want everyone to imagine a world where you build a financial system around your strengths. So whatever way, and this will be identified when you have the book, but whatever way that's best for you to make money, you know what it is. It just comes down to you putting the work, which isn't such a chore because you enjoy doing it because it's based around your personality. And we swing around the budgeting, so many budgeting techniques, but you see, okay, I'm weak in this area and I'm strong in this area, so let me address the areas I'm weak at. Well, eventually, the areas you're weak at, by default, you're not going to be weak because you're going to strengthen them by keep spending money in those areas, making sure you're spending them first before the other areas. Then all of a sudden, you just find that your budgeting becomes automatic and you start moving forward because you're not neglecting any of those areas. And finally, when it comes to the spending of money, once you have those two things locked down, you'll feel a lot better about tackling topics as far as, okay, I need to put together an investment portfolio, but this method works best for my personality. Let me go ahead and use that. And then you can just keep moving forward in every area of finances. And like I said, that insecurity that's just kind of been there, it's been kind of like not wanting to address the elephant in the room. It's just going to subtly vanish. And you're going to realize the heavy burden that was on your shoulders. And whether it's a lot of people may actually be able to, they may be able to achieve a level of financial success, but they're not living up to their full potential and living the lifestyle they want because they can't leverage that personality. And what you're going to be able to do after this is use that personality to have that financial success so that you can feel good in both spirit, achieving your financial goals. They do not have to be separate. Let's get them together.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. I know when, like I said, when I wrote Sales Dogs, I said, look, it's hard enough to figure out what you're good at, let alone trying to be somebody that you're not. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. That is the key to misery, frustration, and it'll crush your spirit. I mean, I'm really glad that Elijah, you wrote this book that really hits home to I think the thing that everybody needs to be reminded of. We all have strengths, and if we apply them in the right direction, you don't really have weaknesses. You just have relative strengths. And so you have the book, the anatomy of financial success, and you have your YouTube channels. What are those if people want to find you?
Sure. So the first channel is called Financial Anatomy. That's on YouTube, and that's why I teach personal finance as well as various ways to make money online. And the second one is called The App Lifestyle, where I show people how to make money from their smartphone exclusively with a lot of apps that we just didn't know you can make so much money off of. And I will give a hint. Some of y'all are probably already wondering. I will say it. Yes, I do cover Uber and Lyft. A lot of y'all are going to ask me. It is on there. It's one of the apps. and and I also have a website. It's www.financialanatomy.net. And you can go there to stay up to date as far as the latest videos and also the latest information that Financial Anatomy is producing.
Well, and the other thing he does too is I watch your review. You review financial books and financial information from other authors and other people too. And that was really helpful. If you want to research more and find out more about the subject, Elijah's not only a great teacher, but he's also a great resource to network you with other things that will support you. So I got a few final words, but what do you want to say? What's the message you want to leave with the world right now?
I like to leave with the message I say at the end of anything about Financial Anatomy. My emails, my YouTube videos, I always say, get out there and take control of your financial destiny. That's
it. Because to what you also said, it'll make you happier. and it'll give you the lifestyle that you want. Don't get distracted. I agree with that. Don't get distracted about the big golden goose, the big trophy way out in the distance. Get your financial house in order, and that'll come soon enough. Making money, budgeting it, spending it. The three basics, man. I love it. So thank you so much, Elijah, for being on the podcast. Again, go to his website, go to the YouTube channel, pick up the book on Amazon, and get your financial house in order, doing it your way, your style, the way you were meant to do it, not the way somebody else tells you to do it, not the way I tell you to do it, not even the way Elijah tells you to do it. You do it the way that you do it, the way that comes natural to you. Because I can tell you this, after being in the training business for many years, is that if you do what's natural to you and focus on that, as Elijah so brilliantly points out in his book, you will succeed and you'll be happy at it. And at the end of the day, that's what counts. Right, Elijah?
Most definitely. That's what counts the most.
That's it. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the future if you're open to that.
I'm definitely open to it.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Good job.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
It's much appreciated. It's a pretty good podcast too.
Huh?
Well, I was saying it's a pretty good podcast.
Yeah, it was a good podcast. Well, you got a great topic, and you got a great twist on it. And obviously, it speaks. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Speaks to when I wrote this book, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole idea. Is everybody's trying to cram people into being, you got to be disciplined, you got to do it this way, you got to be aggressive, and all that other crap, right? I go, but that's just not me. That's just not how it works. Right? It's just not how it works. It's like it's about finding your strength, and focusing on that, and then the life becomes a little bit easier. I think that sometimes my generation spends too much time giving advice based on the way we do things, but that's always subjective to the way we do things. That's not just a difference in time, it's also a difference in personality. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for being a leader, man.
It's my mission statement. I really want to see young adults succeed and not be miserable. Like, those two things are very key. I see one oftentimes, but there's no reason we can't have both, especially in the time we live in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think and you're forming a community too, I think, which is good, where people come together and they can share the thought and share the idea, and who knows, build a movement of enlightened financial literacy for young adults. I think it's powerful. All right, my friend, I'm going to take off. Thank you again. Good luck with your book.
It's much appreciated, Mr. Blair.
No problem. Take care.
You too.